8th of October 2025, and a warm welcome to those in the gallery and those online. I'll now ask the Deputy Mayor to formally open us with karakia.
Tēnā koe, your worship o te rā, tēnā tātou I hui mai nei I tēnei wā. Tēnā koutou e te CE, Wade, koutou ko ngā kaimahi, o kuhua, o te kaunihira, me koutou e mā takitaki mai ana. Tēnā koutou. Tū tawa mai I runga, tū tawa mai I raro, tū tawa mai I roto, tū tawa mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We now move through, we've got a big agenda here today, and well over 30 items, so if you see me moving quickly, you'll know why. So just before we get into the order of business today, again, a warm welcome to everybody. The meeting's being recorded, it's being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. In terms of health and safety, housekeeping procedures, in the event, unlike the event of an emergency, we will move through the green fire exit signs. We evacuate to the assembly area, which is the clock tower in the square to Marangahine. In terms of health and safety, non-smoking, non-vaping facility. If you need to do that, it's outside the building. Again, unlike the event of needing a defibrillator, that is located in the entranceway to customer services. On the ground floor, if there are any incidences, please, if you can report them to our committee administration. Okay, we'll move through to our first, number 2 on our order paper, which is apologies. We don't have any apologies. Fantastic, full house. We now move through to number 3, notification of additional items, and there are none. Declarations of interest. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a declaration of interest on item number 19. I'll step out for that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Item 19. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving through, that's noted. Moving through to number 5, public comment. There is no public comment. And all right, before we go to number 6, we'll go to number 7, is around confirming the minutes of our council meeting, the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of 3rd of September 2025, part 1 public and part 2 confidential, be confirmed as a true and correct record. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Are there any matters arising? There being none, we will look to vote, please. As passed, 15 votes for and 1 against. We'll just adjourn the meeting just for a moment. I just need a bit of paperwork. Apologies there, I'd lost a bit of paperwork. So we move back to number 6, and this is quite special around acknowledging the service of our outgoing councillor, Pat Hancock. So before we get on with everything, I just want to acknowledge everybody around the room, this being our last meeting, and wish you all the very best on election day. But I do want to comment on thanking Councillor Hancock for his 2 terms of service to the city and the community, and wish him well in the future. When Pat was elected in 2019, he was already quite well known to us. He'd been made an Officer of the Order of New Zealand Merit in 2016 for his lengthy service to the New Zealand Police, where he'd served for 44 years since the age of 17. That probably gives a hint to ages. But anyway, we'll talk about the service side of things. Before resigning from the New Zealand Police Force in 2018, Pat had attained the rank of Inspector. He served as Operations Manager for Central District's headquarters before becoming the Palmerston North Area Commander in 2004. When the Palmerston North policing area then expanded across to Tararua, Horowhenua and Manawatu in 2013, Pat took over that role. By the time of his election to council in 2019, you could say Pat was very much well-versed in community liaison. He also served or chaired the Palmerston North Safety Advisory Board from 2005 until 2014. And his work there paved the way for Palmerston North to obtain International Safe City status in 2014, New Zealand's 26th safe community and the world's 333rd city. Between 2012 and 2016, Pat also worked for 18 months as lead advisor for community policing in Timor-Leste, working alongside NGOs, police leadership and the international aid sector. He is also a Methodist Social Services Board member since 2018 and became its chair in 2019. On council, Pat has served as deputy chair of the Community Committee while contributing to the committees of Culture and Sport, Strategy and Finance, as well as the Sustainability Committee. He's also been one of our RMA commissioners and served as council representative for neighbourhood support. He's also been very positive, has had a very positive relationship for council and members of the Bunnythorpe community, one which we are greatly indebted for. So on behalf of your council colleagues, Pat, my thanks for your professionalism, your wisdom and acumen and the example that you've set round the table. And you'll be missed in the chamber, but all the very best to you, Lynn, and the family as you embark on the next phase of your life and career. Thank you. I'll now invite other elected members if they wish to make comment. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I certainly wouldn't let this opportunity go by to publicly thank Pat for his service to the city. Let's just focus on the time that he's been on council, because the Mayor has mentioned the other stuff. But in the 6 years that Pat's been on council, he's been a really reliable advocate for the community. And I have known, with him as my deputy, that he always had my back and that he was always acting in the best interest of the community. That you can trust them completely. But Pat, I have had huge respect for you and your work, and also your support of me, both in the chamber and personally. Sometimes life as an elected member can be a bit tough. Pat has always had my back, so I really appreciate that. We haven't always agreed. Pat would probably be the first one to say that. But sometimes I've persuaded Pat, and sometimes Pat's persuaded me. So I think it's been a very profitable relationship in terms of community. I do want to say that we've been really grateful for your work on the Safety Advisory Board and with youth, and particularly the initiatives that you proposed around youth forum and bringing the youth sector together. I think that that's only just begun to have fruit, but that will continue to have fruit for years to come. The Ada Street improvements, you know, there's a long list of things that Safety Advisory Board under Pat's leadership has really, really been helpful with. City ambassadors, you know, there's one topic that I was not persuaded was a good idea when it first came to council. Pat showed me the evidence, which I was really grateful for, and I was able to change my view on it. So those things have been really, really valuable for the city. Working with the Bunnythorpe community, helping them to get the village plan underway with the help of staff. Restoring trust, I think, in council has been huge. And I'm not sure that any one of us would have been able to have done it as well as you, Pat. So we're really, really grateful. I promised the Mayor I'd be short. One last bit of work I want to mention is speaking up for tangata whenua, Māori wards, rangatani in general. Pat, I think some people possibly, not knowing you well, might have been surprised, but your honesty and integrity in speaking up for tangata whenua has really made an impression on me. And I think, you know, maybe on other people as well. And I expect other people will mention that. So since I promised to be short, just one last thing I want to finish with, which is that I tried very, very hard to get Pat not to step down from council, and so did lots of other people. But Pat, being his own man, had made his decision. And he's taken a leaf out of the theatre book by leaving us wanting more. So thank you, Pat. I'm very grateful to you.
Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā tātou, ngā mihi ki a koe Pet, e te rangatira. Kei te tautoko au ngā kōrero o Whaelona, ka tika tana kōrero, ko koe he tangata mana, he rangatira I hāpai I te hāpori. Nō reira, ko oti pai tō mahi, I tēnei wā, mo tēnei rōpū. Just to say, by Jove's, Councillor Johnson, you didn't leave much for me to say, but I completely endorse everything that you have said, in particular with reference to Councillor Hancock's support of mana whenua, tangata whenua, of the hapori Māori within our city, and his insights in his previous career have been shared with us at times that are really crucial. And Pat, we've enjoyed your wisdom, your compassion for people. You always stand up for those more vulnerable. You're a person who champions equity and fairness and inclusiveness, and we will miss you. But we know that you have contributed significantly, and there is a great deal of respect within our city for you and for what you have done. So I can't let you go without having a mihi to you. And the good news is that we will see you around because you are a giving person, both you and Lynn. So we wish you all the very, very best. And just on an aside, the other day, Pat and I were talking that often we're sitting across each other and you know, it's almost telepathic at times. But I want to wish you all the best, Pat, and thank you so much. Mai te hāpori Māori, mai te mana whenua o Rangitane. Tēnā koe. Kia ora.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and yes, to Councillor Hancock, Pat, acknowledging your contribution over the 6 years is something that's difficult actually to summarize given the amount that you've given, and it's quite extraordinary, your gifts to the community over the years, and that after a very full career you chose to give another 6 years here at this council table. Not always easy work, but important work, and you chose to be part of that, and just want to acknowledge that and appreciate that greatly. I think one of the things that I really drew most from your time is just that absolute rock-solid commitment to social cohesion and always championing that, reminding us of the value of social cohesion, of the sense of community and where that can take us together as a city. And that's left lasting impressions that has sown very important seeds for the next iteration of council to continue building on that work, your commitment to ensuring that we have a more equitable city. If it's neighborhoods that need a bit more, or villages that need a bit more support, they get that extra bit of support and encourage that. Your commitment to balanced transport balanced outcomes out of transport is also greatly appreciated. Always nice to see you out on a bike and sometimes get to compare notes on the way home from a council meeting on how things have been as we pedal along. But just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for what you've done here at this council table. I want to acknowledge that publicly and wish you and Lynn all the best for the future.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also want to join in and actually saying a few words with regards to Councillor Pat Hancock and acknowledging his services. I just want to acknowledge Pat, not just for his professionalism, but also for his wisdom. And for me, Pat, since I've joined the council, or since I've been on the council, over the last 4.5 years, Pat has been a great source of support and emotional support. I think you're one of the few people around this table who actually constantly checked up on me when my mom was very sick and I was away for a bit, and you constantly provided that support to me. And in as much as we might not have agreed on a lot of things or many things, we find ourselves, especially in the councillor's room, always having these debates. And in as much as we've not always agreed on some of the issues, you've been someone that I've actually thought of as being open-minded and also willing to take into consideration other people's views, in as much as you might not agree with them, but just that aspect of you, or that character of you, of just being open-minded and willing to accommodate other people's views and understanding where people are coming from. And that's something that I've really admired from you. And not just your professionalism or your wisdom, but also your sense of public service. And I want to acknowledge the work that you've done around this table, especially the Air District project. I wish you were there at LGNZ to actually collect that award on behalf of the city. And also initiating conversation around the youth forum as well. So I want to acknowledge that and the work that you've been doing with the youth as well. As someone who's a council liaison to the youth council, I also want to acknowledge the work that you've put in that space over the last few years that you've been around the table. So we'll probably have more to say later on, but I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge that on record. And also, I hope, I wish you all the very best. And also, I hope you enjoy your time with Lynn, your mokopuna, and might see you occasionally in Perth for the summer holidays and that sort of thing, as we've done in the past as well. So, yeah, I just want to leave it there, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. But thank you for your services on behalf of myself. You've been a great friend, and I'm going to miss you, and miss your wisdom and your support. Thank you for your services.
Councillors Bellin.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock. Pat, I always like sitting next to you because you have beautifully prepared notes. Let the record show that his notes are amazing. And you also introduced me to OneNote on my computer, which changed my council preparatory experience for the better. But to matters of more substance, I have a huge value for people who commit to lives of service, and you have evidently done that. Pat, you are staunch without being angry. You are knowledgeable while remaining clear-sighted, which is hard to do. And you are genuine, but you're able to compromise. You've seen it all, and that's driven you to step up and change things for the better. And you have. I think I have ultimate respect for those people who walk the talk, and you do. And I look up to you, and I wish I could be more like you, and I will endeavour to be so. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Kia ora.
Councillor Dennison.
Kia ora, Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to you, Pat. Thank you for your contribution, and it is quite unique, and it's been referenced many times around your former police role for over 40 years and the area commander role. And prior to council, Pat led the Safer Community Council when he leaves, chairing it subsequently with his leaving of council. And I actually chaired it in the middle part of that, so I know the work that Pat led up to get the accreditation for Safe City status and his commitment to carry that through. So I've seen that firsthand. The other little light-hearted point I'd like to share is many people don't see behind the councillors' room what happens when we all go for break. But the first thing Pat and I do is go behind and make the plunger coffee. And I've done it for years just because of my bar services in me as hospitality. I just want to get behind the bar. But Pat, you've come as just a continuation of your service, and that played out. So a little humour, but if I'm not elected, I don't know who will make the coffee. But so you just take a poll. The other thing is around something significant, just to wrap it up, is a whakatauki which I come across, which I thought was quite fitting for you. Here, tua taumata rau, which means a leader whose strengths is shown across many heights, whether it's across the policing, around civic leadership, or your other contributions that are very vast. And so while you leave here today, I know you've left a legacy of contribution to the city, and that will continue and be recognised.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Well, I always say, Councillor Hancock, Patrick, Pat. That's what I call Patrick. And this is a joke that came from his first election campaign where his sign said, vote Patrick, Pat Hancock. And it was obviously very important that everybody knew that he was a man of the people and you could refer to him by his diminutive name of Pat. So he's been Patrick Pat to me the whole of this 6 years. I think to echo many of the comments that have already been spoken, Pat is 100% a community man. That's who he is. Kutimani bleed community, and he's been absolutely consistent in that advocacy through his 6 years on council. Obviously, he came to us from a full and varied career in policing, largely in Palmerston North, is most well known, and then his work in Timor-Leste. I'm not sure which elements of those prepared you most effectively for Palmerston North City Council, but you brought that community sensibility to our table, and we're incredibly grateful for it. What I wanted to comment on today was the strength of your approach to community policing that you brought to your work here. Community policing at its heart, I understand from Pat, is around creative community-led solutions. And that's the lens you brought to your work in our city, the lens you brought to sometimes challenging conversations around this table, and the solutions that you were able to advocate for and bring forward in this forum have come from that place, a strong drive that our best solutions will be creative and they'll be community-led. And we've seen that, and I think we will continue to reap the benefit of that even after you've left the table. I think you've changed the way we do some things, Pat, and that's your legacy, and I'm very grateful for it. So I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for that today. Kia ora.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. Everyone said very much, heaps. But, Pat, in the 2 terms you've been here, you've stood out as a councillor. You brought something into the council chamber that is not rare, but everyone doesn't seem to carry it, but you had integrity. You believed in what you voted for. You couldn't be bullied, you couldn't be nudged out of what you believed was right. And I really respect you for your integrity and what you believed. And I thank you for that.
All right, right a reply, Councillor Hancock, but only 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thought I'd just bring that photograph up on the screen. Thank you, Hannah, for allowing that to up on the screen, because that's really a distraction for about what I'm about to say. But Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor Whai Debbie, fellow councillors, Chief Executive staff and members of the public who are here today, most of whom are probably not here to listen to this item. Look, thank you very much for all of your kind words. I didn't really expect so many people to speak, so I really am grateful for the kind words. Before I start, really, I just want to acknowledge mana whenua, Rangatani, for whose whenua our city has been established and has grown over many generations, and for the manakitanga that Rangatani continue to provide to the communities of our city. I also, Trieste and Wiremu aren't here at the moment, but I also want to just acknowledge my relationship with Trieste and Wiremu, a relationship that has spanned more than 20 years, and I just really want to note their magnificent support to the Safety Advisory Board, to police, and also their cultural support that they have provided continuously, not just for the council, but also across our community. So then we kind of get to the point of, this valedictory speech, and I'm actually the only one that's actually resigning. So I get to kind of sort of have my say on my terms. Now, this photograph, right? I asked for this to be put up here because it's kind of like a distraction while I'm talking. It gives you something to look at instead of looking at me and me looking at you. But by the end, you can just start to make some notes and actually create some captions while I talk. But that look is me looking at Councillor Wood, and I am enthusiastically agreeing with one of his speeches. So that's what that photograph represents, Councillor Wood. Really? So anyway, we need to have a little bit of humour. So the photograph has been a source of huge humour for me, as it pops up in the 102 standard every time Councillor Rankin up there actually decides that she's actually going to write something about me. And I'll come back to you in a little while, Janine. But anyway, look, I really did wrestle with this decision. And it really was for months. I wrestled as to whether or not I was going to be good for another 3 years. And there's a whole bunch of things which were really important to me. And of course, once you actually leave the council chamber, we actually lose control over those things. And so I'm going to later in this small speech, very small speech, probably sort of highlight some of the things which I want some of you to carry on with, things that are really important to me. So you have to kind of decide, are you ready to go for another 3 years? And also there are other things that are really, really important in your life. Of course, my wife Lynn and my family, and also our mokopuna who live between Wellington, New Plymouth and Perth. So getting time with 6 grandkids is really, really important, and I do need to make sure that I'm present for them. I'm not going to make a political speech, but I'm actually going to make some pragmatic observations about the state of politics in New Zealand at the present. In fact, it goes beyond just New Zealand. It is actually this seeping disease within OECD countries and democracies that we see today. At the moment, we actually do have a government that unfairly, I think, criticises local government. And it repeats those blanket narratives around wasteful spending, needs versus wants, nice to haves, and vanity projects. And they repeat it constantly. Local government has become expendable to support government narratives that play to their own base. Local government is not perfect, but neither is central government. Punching down indiscriminately on local government where people are working hard to support the needs of communities is irresponsible and unhelpful. And these narratives feed into social media. And that proliferates negative, ill-informed commentary and often attacks our staff and some councillors, those councillors that actually don't actually just bend to popular narratives. The relationship with central government and local government needs to be better aligned, needs to be built on mutual respect and collaboration, because one part of government supports the other, or that's how it ought to be. And at the moment, it is not so. It does need to change. Local government is large and complex, and the sheer breadth of the work is known to few. To be the best we can possibly be, we need to be progressive, we need to be courageous, and we need to challenge convention. And we need to accept that for us to move forward, there has to be change. And sometimes change is really uncomfortable. And for a lot in our community, if you want to change something, all you do is you just get a kickback straight away. And councillors, you just kind of got to ride with it. You got to know that you've got to push back, because if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. And changing some things can become, if you try to turn back the clock and change things, it's going to cost ratepayers a lot of money in the long term. Brent, you talked about social capital and social cohesion before. We also need to understand that growing social capital is important. It is as important as investing in infrastructure, because it is people that have the ideas, the energy, the ability to innovate and be creative. So investment in community centres, libraries, NGOs, community partners, networks, where people have the opportunity to connect and be social beings, are critically important. It is as critically important as infrastructure. It also unlocks countless hours in productivity from our voluntary sector. And unless we actually are bold enough to actually do that stuff, then we actually can't progress as quickly as we need to. We also need to invest in our people. And I really want to take this opportunity to thank you, Wade, our managers, our great managers, and our staff. To work alongside you in the last 6 years has been a great privilege. It is a very rare day when I see any of you have an on-off day. Your dedication to the work you do for the city is truly impressive. Thank you. I will always be a fan, and I'll always be an advocate. Grant, you've been pretty awesome to work with. Your work ethic and your ability to actually corral these councillors into some semblance of agreement is second to none. And also thank you very much for your support of safety issues within the city. Lorna, Skipper, working with you on matters, all matters community in the last 6 years has been a really awesome journey. Your advocacy for the community organisations and the people of our city can't be overstated. And Lorna talked about, I'm always reliable. Well, the conversation I had with her the other night was that I am mostly reliable. So my report card is not 10 stars out of 10. So I'm just going to kind of finish off on some of the things which I've valued in the last 6 years. And of course, it's been touched on the establishment of our Māori ward. And these are critical to ensure the uplift of all of our people. And we're only going to reach our potential when we uplift all of our people to be able to be valued and contributing to our communities in the years to come. Investment and support to youth wellbeing and to resolve the issues around homelessness. And just yesterday, you actually had Viv Beck in Auckland talking about the impact that homelessness is actually having on cities, on Auckland City, the CBD, and the complex issues that have beset themselves on their city, and we also have some issues like that here in Palmerston North. So we need to be thinking about how we're actually going to resolve that, not just in council, but across the wider stakeholders who have a mandate in that area. Investment in our safe city and the inclusiveness of all people, and understanding that there is a direct correlation between social cohesion and our city's potential and resilience. And I've touched on that already. Equitable investment across our city, embedded in both policies and practice. And I thank council officers for a lot of the work that they've actually done to make sure that we do get investment into some of our more deprived parts of the city. That has been a really big highlight for me. My time at the Safety Advisory Board, that actually is 16 years I've chaired that, which is quite a while. And I relinquished chairpersonship of that just last week or the week before. And I'm really grateful, Steph, for the gift and the farewell from the Safety Advisory Board. And similarly, the Bunnythorpe community, they farewelled me at the AGM a couple of weeks ago, gave me a beautiful gift, and I will treasure that. Amongst those two entities or organisations, the SAB and Bunnythorpe community, there are some great people who do some awesome work on behalf of us all. I also do appreciate the work of all of you councillors, the whole lot of you, on our relationships and also of friendships forged. The things I don't value so much, and has given me and many of a moment of humour, is that photograph. But having said that, it is me. And my son actually calls me Mr. Serious Guy, so that is me. So I just want to acknowledge also Janine for your undying support, I think, of local government in reporting the things that matter for our city. So I do thank you for that. And I see we do have the photographer in the room over here, and I'm hoping that my file photo going forward will be a little bit better than that one. So anyway, that really closes me off, really. Other than that, I hope for the next term that we have diversity and balance and a collaborative spirit, folks. And remember, we're all stronger together. Best of luck to you all on Saturday. I hope you all do well. Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou.
Te aroha, te whakahono, me te rangi mari e, tātou tātou e. Te aroha, te whakahono, me te rangi mari e, tātou tātou e.
Small gift for you, Pat. It's a photo of all of us. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I'll open it afterwards.
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor Hancock. All right, councillors, just to give you an understanding of the run sheet today, agenda today, look, we're going to look to move through to items 8, 9 and 10, which is around the annual report, and I just want to acknowledge our auditor, Debbie here, and also 9 and 10 are around our airport company, and I acknowledge the airport company here as well. We'll then break for a morning tea. We'll then continue on item agendas 11, 12, 13, break for a lunch, possibly get something in before that, I don't know, we'll just see how we go. We then, after lunch, we will break for part 2, confidential, because there's a number of items here that have been held over and we just can't hold them any longer. Then we'll come back to the open part of our meeting, part 1. Hopefully we're finished by 5 o'clock. All right, I say that hopefully. Okay, we're now going to move to item number 8 on our agenda, and this is around the adoption of the annual report, 24-25, and I invite Scott Manser, our Manager of Finance, and our Auditor Director, Debbie Pereira, to the table. Thank you, and it's on page 21 of your papers, and of course, your bulky extras. over to you.
Very good morning to you all this morning, Mr Mayor and elected members. I think I'm even more excited this week, having got the annual report through the Risk and Assurance Committee last week. So a very big thank you for your feedback and questions and minor edits in the document, and we're happy to say we've made, I think, all of those changes there as well. So thank you for that, and that contribution is great. So the annual report is obviously the wrap-up of the 24-25 year and is the sort of final piece following the Q4 report that we discussed in August. As I mentioned to committee last week, we've approached this annual report with an entire refresh in mind, as it's year one of the LTP. So a really big thanks to our activity managers around the organisation, Liv, our communications manager, Jess, our marketing manager, and most especially to Mark, our graphic designer, for the fantastic work he's done in how that document looks. Finally, before I pass over to Debbie, a bit of a thanks to my team in finance, particularly Matt and Karen in the gallery behind us, but also the wider team that supports that to get us there. And so with a clear audit opinion for the first time in 5 years, I'll pass over to Debbie to talk about that.
Kia ora. And thank you, Scott. And I would just like to pass my congratulations on to Council. It is the first time I think that I've sat here to give a clear audit opinion. So there's a huge amount of work that has gone on to get to this point, and it's been a bit of a journey, a lot of changes that have gone ahead. So I'm very pleased about that. And I'd like to congratulate Council on a really good annual report. You haven't got it yet, but I will be issuing very shortly a report to Council, and it's very, very positive. I cover off the accounting estimates that are included in the report, and find that you've got very balanced reporting and no concerns to raise to yourselves. So I think well done. Thank you.
Happy for any questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Debbie. And I just want to acknowledge you, Debbie. I understand this will be your last report and meeting with us. So thank you for your service to us over the past few years. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you both. Just a couple of questions from me following on from last week. The graph on page 13 of which outlines the operating expenditure by activity. Thanks for the questions that were answered since last week. I'm just interested, I realise that's the growth expenditure, and in our long-term plan, in our annual budgets, what is usually captured is what the rates requirement for each activity, which is quite different because obviously there's some revenue that offsets these expenses, which obviously looks quite different. I'm just interested to know, it might be, I'm not sure if this is for you, Scott, or comms, but why have we changed the way that we report in an annual report as being different to how we've demonstrated it in our annual budget?
Yeah, if I can sort of predict the rest of that question, we haven't changed it. It is further through, particularly through section 2, you'll see the other revenue that is itemised out, as well as the expenditure, and then the rates requirement, and actually how that's flowed through the statements. That section 1 information is more about where we're spending the money rather than where it's coming from, and just providing a little bit there. But if the council felt we needed to include something, we could look to that next year for the annual report. Unfortunately, we can't probably change anything right now without asking Debbie to do a whole lot of extra work, and I don't think she's terribly keen on that right at this point. But yeah, does that sort of answer that?
Yep, totally. I realise we can't change it at this stage. But in terms of the rates requirement or the net expenditure, where is that demonstrated in any sort of visual form? I mean, I know it's in the detail of each activity, which I've had a look at, but do we have that captured in any sort of similar way to how it's captured within our annual budgets or long-term plan?
No, we don't have a visual on the rates, but we neither in the LTP or the annual budget either, but that's certainly something we can take as feedback and look for next year.
Thank you. And just the second question I had was it's on page 190, under note 8, the employee and elected representative benefits expenses. Now, the council part of that I calculated as a 7.9% increase of the total amount, but the group amount is actually a 9.7% increase. It's quite a lot more, and I'm just wanting to understand what things sit outside of council that are included in group that drive that percentage up for the group part.
Yeah, so that's our CCOs. The biggest one of those will be Te Manawa and the airport company. So both of those feed into there, and there'll be some minor other expenditure from the other CCOs, which will be Cedar, the Globe, and the Regent. Thank you.
So are you suggesting that we capture the salaries, wages for those companies and include them in this note?
I'm not suggesting we do. They are council-controlled organisations, so we have to consolidate them into our group financial positions.
Yeah, but I hear you. What I'm trying to understand is it the total grant? I mean, I know we make those grants to those organisations as a total. Do you break down the part of that grant that applies to salaries and wages for this note?
No, we take the CCO's audited financial accounts and record the expenditure as they do as well. So we have to show the expenditure of that is for employees and elected representatives, and that in the cases of the CCOs, it's only employees.
Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. That's our questions. Councillor Naylor, as Audit Deputy Chair, would you like to move? Yeah. Thank you. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Harpeder. So thank you, Debbie, and appreciate again your help for us over the past couple of years, and thank you, Scott, and the finance team for where we're at. If there's no other speakers, I'd just like to acknowledge all the work that's gone on behind the scenes. We have had some, rightly so, some commentary about our adverse audit. I suppose the big things now is continuing the good work that's got us to the stage and making sure that we can deliver on what we say we're going to deliver on, and just acknowledge all parts of the organisation, because as you can see from some of the summary parts here, the areas of operation are quite huge in different sectors. So again, thank you everybody. And right a reply there, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just echoing the Mayor's points also, but want to acknowledge Debbie and staff and all of the work that's gone into this. And I think these reports do give a really good demonstration of the vast amount of work that has happened in that 24-25 year. Just a couple of things to add. I don't want to repeat everything I covered last week, but this was a year that we did ask our community for 10.1% additional rates. So, and as a result of that, there has been some additional, particularly in the renewal space, a significant amount of additional work in terms of looking after our assets. In terms of the way that we describe this, there has been some commentary a week ago, and subsequent to that, Councillor Rankin reporting on that, that has created a little bit of chatter about the way that we describe the operating expenditure by activity. And in reflecting on that a little bit further, it did strike me as I became aware that perhaps that demonstration of reporting that as just a gross operating expenditure is being quite different. It does give different outcomes to the rates requirement for each activity. And in fact, the rates requirement for recreation and play is the biggest area of activity that we've needed rates for. So because of such a different level of revenue for each activity, that does change that perspective. And perhaps going forward, I think what we're telling in that graph is really half the story. I think it would be helpful for those readers that perhaps have made some assumptions about that graph. For example, I had questions from people in the community saying, why are we investing $18.9 million in housing? However, we had a $14 million revenue. So it is quite a different picture to what we've demonstrated in our long-term plan and in our annual budgets. So I do believe that having some consistency of reporting in the way that we demonstrate that when we come to the annual report time would be quite useful. But aside from that, a good year, and thanks to the staff for all the hard work for everything that has been delivered during that year.
Councillor, is it a point of order?
Point of order, just to clarify around, if I heard right, 10.1%.
I did as well. I was going to ask the same question. Could I just get an understanding from finance? Our general rate increase wasn't 10.1? It was 6.6? No, I'm not asking you. With all due respect, Councillor, I'm trying to... Cam, could I ask you to...
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding, and I'm just clarifying just a minute, but I'm pretty sure it's year one of the long-term plan is the annual report that this refers to, and that was 10.1%. It's the annual budget of the current year was the 6.6.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. We will vote, please. That has passed 16 votes for, none against. Thank you. All right, we'll move through now to Palmerston North Airport Limited annual report and invite the chair, Murray Georgell, of the airport company, and David Lanham, the CE, and Steve Patterson, our manager of financial strategy. Gentlemen, page 25 of your papers, councillors.
Good morning, everyone. This, like the council itself, is the time when the airport company presents to us its annual report for the previous 12 months. We've had reports from them during the year, of course, an interim report for the 6 months where they gave us an indication of how things were tracking. This report from them is a full report of the year. I'm not planning to say anything other than to say that the key objectives that the council had for the company for the year, from my perspective, have been met. The recommendations here are that we receive their reports and that we instruct the shareholder representative, being the mayor, to support the resolutions for the annual meeting, which in the normal course would be held in writing. So this, I suppose, presentation from the company in a sense becomes like the annual meeting, in that this is your opportunity as the council to hear from the company and to have any questions answered. The chair may wish to say a word or two, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors. We haven't got a presentation this morning. We see you've got a very big card today, and we want to get you home before it gets too dark. What we thought we'd do is just touch on a few points which were accentuated in the statement of expectations, which I must say over the last few years has been developed to the point where it is very helpful for, I think, for yourselves and for us, gives clarity and removes any confusion. Our annual report is with you, and the significant parts of it are about our first priority, which is maintaining and our critical infrastructure, which is mostly around airside pavement upgrades and so on, to make sure that we can comply, as we have, with Part 139 of the Civil Aviation Act. And so we've done that. Of course, we keep up some other investments into our infrastructure, such as licence plate recognition, and as you'd see if you've been out there recently, of course, into our terminal and our temporary terminal arrangements. To get there, we had to award a contract to someone. We did. It was LT McGuinness. We're very pleased that they've been part of our program. Demolition has started. Along the way, we have been very, very involved with Air New Zealand. They are our biggest customer, and they're the ones who pay us the most money, and we've got to make sure that all of our arrangements are suitable to them, and that's not just at this point, but going forward. We've talked in the past about having development on the Ruapehu Aero Park, and just prior to the end of the financial year, we signed an agreement with Freightways for a significant warehouse and breezeway there, and potential for more in the year or two to come. That building, I believe, is early 2027 for completion. We're also looking at other revenue diversification opportunities, and we have announced or reviewed our land holdings. We've found that there are some surplus to requirements, and we are going through the Public Works Act disposal process to provide us with funds from those. Part of that actually is a sale of some of the land to yourselves, to the council, for a water bore, and we've agreed the terms for that. We'll also continue to look at joint venture partners, potentials for future development, so that we can, we're not, I suppose, fettered by a lack of funds to take opportunities when they arise. And with that in mind, we have been in negotiation with and settled a bank facility, which means that we will be able to continue with the plans that we have now without seeking any support in terms of capital from the shareholder. Our carbon reduction initiatives have been maintained at level 4, and we're very strong on that. We're very happy with it. One of the very positive aspects of our reduction in emissions and recycling and what have you has actually been in the reuse of the material extracted from the demolition of the western wing of the terminal, and so far over 80% of that is being recycled, which we believe is a very good return. Our financial performance for the year was strong, better than was in our statement of intent, but there are lots of timing issues between years right at this stage, given our terminal development and so on. Nevertheless, great result. We intend to pay the $300,000 dividend that the council outlined in the letter of expectations, and would continue to do so into the future. And lastly, or second lastly, our shareholders' equity. Your equity has risen to now over 84 million, which is over $2 million higher than it was a year ago. So that, Mr. Mayor, is an outline of the last financial year, as brief as it may be. And it would just be remiss of me not to say thank you all to the council for your support over the last term, and best wishes for the future.
Thank you, Murray. David, anything you want to add? No, okay. A couple of questions. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, for the report. I had quite a lot of questions, but most of them were answered as I went through, so it's been very good reading. I just had a couple left over. One was on page 93, which is page 61 of your annual report, regarding your analysis of operating revenue. I noted on page 66 or 34 that you'd had a minor decline in passenger numbers, but obviously an increase in aeronautical charge income. It, by my calculation, was a roughly 17.9% year-on-year increase. I just want to understand, what should passengers expect over the coming 2 or 3 years? I know you've spoke about recouping some of the costs of the terminal development through aeronautical charging. Are we expecting continued increase over the next 3 years, or is it a step up and then a plateau?
We have a 3-year fixed fee plan with Air New Zealand, primarily, as our main operator. There are increases, and it's primarily around the new terminal.
Excellent, thank you. And my other question was on page 113 regarding your Note 11A General Administration. I appreciate your the primary driver increase in that is your temporary terminal and demolition costs. But I did note that your marketing expense had increased by 70% to 171,000. I assume part of that is you're informing the community to expect that the terminal's being redeveloped when they get there, but it seemed like quite a high price tag for a campaign I thought might have cost 30 or 40 grand, not 170. So is there something else going on there?
There's a range of new initiatives underway for marketing, but you identified a key one being communication with our communities around the terminal.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Murray and David, for the report. Just going back to the passenger numbers, which weren't as strong as one might have hoped, I suppose. Are you able to do a bit more analysis on the causes for that? How much is due to people making economic decisions because of the tough economic times? How much is due to people avoiding the terminal because of redevelopment? Do you have an insight into why the passenger numbers are a bit weak at the moment?
Well, I don't think it's unique to Palmerston North. We're seeing it right across all peer airports have similar sort of numbers at the moment.
Okay, so more reflected by the economic environment than the terminal
Correct.
rebuild. Okay, thank you.
All right, that's our questions done. Thank you, gentlemen, and like some of the other councillors, appreciate the report and some of the good things that are happening there. We have a couple of recommendations to Council. The Council received the annual report financial statements of the airport company for the year ended 30 June 2025. The Council shareholder representative, the Mayor, be instructed to support the proposed resolutions listed in section 2.9 to be considered at the annual meeting of the airport company to be conducted by way of resolution in writing. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, thank you again to the airport company. I think one thing that stands out for me, and look, passenger numbers are down, but look, if you look at, we're probably tracking better than some other regional areas who have actually had routes cancelled. So connection is one of our key things here for all strategies for our city and all forms of transport, and that includes air travel. And I'm sure that as times improve, they will come back. The big thing for me is the freight signing, the warehousing for the freight, which really does underpin our status as a logistics and distribution hub for the Lower North Island and indeed New Zealand. But we can't forget flight training and the other pieces of work that are around the property portfolio that are being explored at the moment. And finally, after almost a decade and more, we're starting to see the airport company really start to improve its capability and diversify its income streams more than just passengers. And we've got to be aware that we are more of a price taker if we're just going to look at just passengers, which other regional centres, unfortunately for them, only have. We've got quite a diverse airport campus there with a number of different other revenue streams which really do help. So again, thank you to the airport company, and it's good to see a dividend coming, and great work on getting some signings around the freight warehousing. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak briefly in the spirit of fairness. It would be fair to say over the last 3 years I've been critical at times of the airport company, and so to see a $300,000 dividend coming in this year as the result of work of Councillor Barrett, Councillor Naylor, myself and others is very pleasing. And so I want to be fair and say thank you very much to the airport for your hard work in accepting that expectation from the council. I've also been critical of the lack of development at the Ruapehu Aeronautical Park, and so it is fantastic to see that deal signed with Freightways for a 5,500 square metre warehouse, and it would be remiss of me when I've criticised the airport for not being quick enough in getting that done, not to congratulate them on seeing that starting to come to fruition. So thank you for the work that you do. Oh, and the other thing was around the sale of underutilised land. I think in the interest of the economic growth of our whole city, it's very appropriate that the airport company looks at what they can do with their large land holding, and so I thank the board and thank the team for that. So appreciate it, and apologies if I've been a wee bit too critical over the years, but it's good to see us heading in the right direction.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, I just wanted to say that I thought the report was really, really good, really well put together, helpful. And I really enjoyed the staff profiles. I thought they added quite a lot to it, so thank you for that. I also just want to say, as someone who's been through the airport since it's been in its kind of temporary terminal status, I actually found it quite an easy and comfortable experience. It was easy to find my way around. The facilities were, I didn't think any, significantly worse than they had been before, really. So I didn't find it a hassle at all, and I'm kind of agreeing with the airport that any reduction in passenger numbers is probably a reflection of the economic environment that we find ourselves in rather than the difficulties at the airport. So let's just hope that economic conditions improve quickly so that passenger numbers pick up. But all in all, I think a great performance from the airport. Thank you.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to say well done to the board and to the management team for the diversification of the income. It's great to see, and well done for the hard work that you've been doing for that area. So well done for that, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Yes, also to say thank you very much for the work that you've done. I was really pleasantly surprised by the generally positive report that we've received in what is undoubtedly very difficult times. To add to Councillor Johnson's anecdata about the airport, I recently returned from a trip overseas to see family. My daughter picked me up from the airport. She said, I love this new airport terminal. And I said, this isn't the new airport terminal. I was getting towards a new airport terminal. I think people have been really pleasantly surprised by how you've transitioned, you're managing that transition as we go through. I totally agree with Councillor Johnson's comments that any reduction in travelling numbers is nothing to do with the state of the terminal itself. You've done amazing work to make that experience feel not too different from normal, but also to communicate that with our community. I've been really impressed by the work that you have done to explain to people what the differences might be, how to get help if they need it. I think our community are looking forward to this work being done, but the process of doing it is so far not too painful. So thank you.
All right, we have the resolutions in front of us. Again, thank you to the airport company, and I won't repeat what everybody's said, but it's been an excellent report. Thank you. We will vote. That is passed, 15 votes for. That's not right. Why? Yeah, I was a yes. I did vote. A gremlin in our system. Okay. All right. We'll move now to our next, which is number 10 on the order of papers around the statement of expectation, and invite Steve Patterson up to speak to that. Steve.
Yes, good morning again. There's no legal requirement for us to prepare a statement of expectation for the company, but it's good practice these days to do so. The council's done so for a number of years now. In the case of some of your other CCOs, we have a statement that's actually not reviewed every year, but in this case for the airport, we've said in the statement that we will review it annually. I think that's probably desirable at the moment, given the company is going through quite a period of growth and, well, not growth, but certainly significant capital expenditure and development. And so it's important that we refocus each year, and you have the opportunity to outline to the board your expectations of them. But having said that, it's my feeling and recommendation to you that we make very little in the way of change to the statement, given the level of commitment that the company's made to its direction that it's got at the moment. And so I think it would be unsettling and unreasonable for them to change significantly the direction that the council was seeking from them. But from that perspective, the only changes really that I've made in the wording are very minor ones to correct words and places where they needed to be updated, and to reflect the fact that the new year, I've made the words in relation to the dividend ones that are more enduring beyond the second year, because in last year's one they just talked about the year following, but I've suggested that this be the dividend payment for the years after the 26-27 year as well. So apart from that, I don't have any other comments to make.
Thank you, Steve. You've done a good job. There's no questions. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a recommendation there to council that we adopt the statement of expectations for the Palmerston Limited 26 to 27, 28, 29, attachment 1. And that's on page from 149 of 137. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll open it up for any comments. Right, we'll vote, please. Has passed, 16 votes for and none against. Thank you. What we'll do now is look to, before for a morning tea, we will look to number 18. We'll get some of the other smaller items through. So we've got number 18, which is elected members meeting attendance stats from 1 July 2024 to 30 June 2025. And I'll ask the Governance Manager, Hannah White, to speak to that. Hannah.
Happy to take the paper as read, Mr. Mayor, and answer any questions.
Right. Councillor Naylor.
Thanks. Just one quick question from me. Meetings attended as a member, I understand, includes workshops. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So is there a breakdown of what's meetings and what's workshops anywhere?
I do have a breakdown, but it hasn't been presented here.
Okay, and is that the intent to just have them lumped together as opposed to reported separately?
That's what I've done for this financial year, but I'm happy to adjust that for future.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Hannah. And we have a recommendation there that we receive the memorandum titled Elected Members Meeting Attendance Stats for 1 July 24 to 30 June 2025 presented today on Council. I'm happy to move those, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Yeah, colleagues are a fairly blunt tool at times to tell us, or tell the public what we're doing. Of course, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, as Councillor Hancock spoke about in his valedictory speech. The many community events, many events that, or meetings, workshops that we have to attend. And I know that the vast majority of you do that on top of the attendance stats in this chamber. So I just want to acknowledge that as well. Okay, we will vote, please. That has passed 16 votes for, none against. Thank you. We'll move through to number 19, which is around, and I'll ask Desiree Viggers, our legal manager, to speak to this. Number 19 on our order paper. It's around a hearing panel for dog control.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to take the report as read and take any questions.
So it's page 291 of our papers. I'll open it up for any questions. You've done a good job as well, Desiree. So there are no questions there, and this is around appointing some panel members, for this hearing. Excuse me. So the recommendation is Council agreed with Councillor Lorna Johnson, Councillor Pat Hancock to hear an objection to menacing dog classification apply until the decision of the panel is issued, regardless of whether or not they are members listed or re-elected to the City Council at the 2025 local government elections. I'm happy to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. There being no comments, we will vote, please. And that has passed, 14 votes for and none against. We'll move through to number 20, which is our work schedule, which is page 293 of our papers, and I'll pass to the Chief Executive.
Happy to take the report as read. Take any questions?
Okay, you've done a good job there as well, right? So, recommendations, very humble as well. Recommendations to Council that we receive the work schedule date today, the 8th of October 2025. I'm happy to move it, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll ask you to vote. As passed, 16 votes for and none against. Right, we'll move through to number 21, and I'll look to the Chair of Culture and Sport, Councillor Bowen, to present recommendations from the September meeting. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to present for adoption the minutes of the Part 1 Public Culture and Sport Committee from the 10th of September 2025. Thank you.
And seconded by the Deputy, Councillor Meehan. Are there any matters arising from those? There being none, we will vote, please. That has passed, 16 votes for and none against. Okay, we will break now for a morning tea. We have a couple of extra people joining us, so just want to acknowledge our Audit Chair, Steve Armstrong, in the gallery, who will join us, and I understand Rangitane members will be as well. So we will break. We do have a few little speeches in the councillors' room, so we'll be back at 11. Thank you. we now move through to, back to number 11, which is around our Linklater Reserve and dog control area. And I'll invite Stacey Solomon from Policy to speak to her paper, which is page 145. Stacey.
Atmari e koromātua kai kanihira, ko waia ko Stacey Tiringa, kai tātare kaupapihiri. Good morning everyone, I'm Stacey Solomon, I'm a policy analyst. I'm very happy to bring you the deliberations report for the Linklater Reserve on leash proposal. I do hope you find the information in the report useful for your deliberations today. With that, I would note that we are recommending through our report a change to the proposal that is in response to the submissions that we received on it. The original proposal was to make an on-leash area at Linklater Reserve up to the aeroplane on-leash, so that's about halfway through the reserve. Our recommendation, based on responses to the consultation, has been to reduce that on-leash area to just behind the BMX track, which is about a third of the reserve. I would note that while that option is generally responsive to a number of submissions, I acknowledge that it is still going to be very disappointing for a number of people in the community for different reasons. You'll find there are also other options detailed in the report that have been developed in response to the submissions. I'd highlight while all of those options are possible, they have varying degrees of complexity, affordability, and likelihood of achieving a desirable or enduring outcome. We've got officers from Environmental Protection Services here as well as from the reserves team to assist with your deliberations. Nā roto I te koromātua he pātai, I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Stacey. We do. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Stacey, for the report. In option 2 under community views, in your kind of summary table on page 146 of the agenda, you've said submitters, many reluctantly, consider this option to be a compromise between status quo and the original proposal of the council. Can you explain to me how you came to that conclusion?
Sure. So a number of the submitters described that what they thought of the original proposal, that it was too much of an overreach or an overcorrection, particularly in the extent of the on-leash area. Specifically, they would point out the space between the row of pine trees behind the BMX track and the middle of the reserve at the aeroplane as being an area where it wouldn't make sense for the dogs to be on leash because most people aren't there. They're at the amenity in the front of the reserve, so they could concede that it would make sense possibly to have dogs on leash around children's play spaces, which are mostly in the front of the reserve, but the area behind the BMX track, it didn't make sense to a number of our submitters.
And do you have the numbers on that?
I could possibly pull them out, but I think I don't have the specific numbers on that, no, but I do know that there were people on all sides of that discussion. So there were people who didn't support the proposal generally, who could bring themselves to support option 2 as it's described, and there were also people who did support the proposal in its original form that could also agree that option 2 would be favourable. I believe it was to fence behind the BMX track and the pine trees was the most preferred alternative option other than having no changes at all in response to the total number of submissions.
Okay. So on page 153, where you've sort of done your analysis of the options against the criteria, For options 5 and option 6, for legislative alignment, you've put partial. Now, given that option 6 is the status quo and option 5, as I understand it, is no fencing but additional regulatory mechanisms, how is it that you don't think that they align with legislation, given that, you know, option 6 is status quo? So presumably that's what we're doing at the moment.
So one of the issues we have within our policy and our bylaw is that our general rule is that we wouldn't be putting playgrounds into areas where dogs are off-leash generally. It's part of the requirements we are trying to meet when we write our policy set in section 10A4AD of the Dog Control Act. So those requirements set out what the council should have regard to when it's making its policy, and it goes through a number of things. Those are the ability of the community to be able to access public spaces without fear of dog attack or being intimidated by dogs. It also says that we still need to provide for the recreation and exercise needs of dogs and their owners. So what is happening there, I think I can refer you to page 225 of the agenda where that analysis is. It's related to avoiding the inherent danger and allowing dogs to have uncontrolled access to public spaces, particularly spaces where vulnerable people like children and families might be.
I understand that. My question is, that's the status quo now. So are you saying that we're not in alignment with legislation currently?
We're partially in alignment with it, I think, is what we're saying. It's the development of the reserve over time has put us in a position where we are now trying to cater for all of the needs of the community in that one space, often at the request of the community. So we are meeting some of the legislation more than other parts of it.
But would it be fair to say that that section 10.4, which you've itemised on the bottom of page 151, I think, is about determining a balance between those 4 criteria? The council must have regard to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then my last sort of area of question is around the statistics that were presented for the reported dog attack incidents across the city. And they were kind of presented by, I'm just looking for the page, but it's in here. They were kind of presented by suburb. Do we have an analysis down to a reserve level, or is the analysis only down to suburb level?
I believe the analysis is only down to suburb level. We aren't going as deep as reserve level.
Okay. And we've got the last, I think it's 3 years of statistics. Looking at those, they seem to vary quite a lot from year to year, not only in Kelvin Grove, but in other suburbs. So has anybody been able to take a longer look at those statistics, say over 10 years or 20 years, to see if there's a trend? Because over 3 years, it's very up and down.
I might refer that to our Environmental Protection Services team.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, sorry, page 183 I'm referring to. Finally got there.
Ross McDermott, Team Leader, Animal Management. Through the Chair, short answer is no, we haven't. This 3-year look across suburbs was predominantly for this report.
Okay, thank you. That's me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Stacey. Look, just a couple of questions, and just in relation to the options, option 2 and option 3. are the same, except for that option 3 includes the wetland area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you tell us how many submitters that we had through the process were in favour of including the wetland area as off-leash?
I have the figure if I noted somewhere in the deliberations report, but I can tell you most submitters wanted that, who were opposed to the original proposal, wanted the wetlands to remain off-leash.
Great, thank you. Might our recommendation have been different if we had sufficient budget in this year's budget to actually include the wetland into a potential option? Might we have made a different recommendation if that was the case? Or perhaps what I'm asking is that, is option 3 being precluded because this year we don't have budget there to actually do the additional fencing?
No, there are other factors that are contributing to the analysis in that decision. So budget is one of them. Another part of it would be through our submissions, we received a lot of feedback about people not wanting to see the reserve have too much fencing in a way that would be particularly disruptive to the visual amenity of it. The reserve is meant to have a rural character, to be broad open spaces, and so fencing the reserve in that particular way would look quite, could be quite jarring for the visual amenity. The other part of that was we have our disc golf course out there as well. That particular option would be incredibly disruptive to the disc golfers. We would need to relocate several of their tees, and it might eventually result in them having to sort of reconfigure the course a little bit more than what they would be amenable to.
Yep, okay, thank you. Just in terms of, I can't recall seeing in the report, did we have any environmental impacts of including the wetland into off-leash or vice versa? Did we talk about, you know, biodiversity and things like that?
As I understand, the wetland area is relatively new. It isn't significant in the broad sense of our city as a wetland area. It's quite a discrete one. I believe in the coming years we'll also be looking to do some work in that space for our stormwater, so we will be disturbing that area a little bit in the coming years anyway, but no, it's not a significant biodiverse area.
So with what you've just said about, because I really wanted to kind of sort of get an understanding of the spatial, the spatial properties of the various proposals. So I actually had went to Linklater and had a look. So in terms of that wetland area, there is potential to develop that further, and if there is some potential for that down the track to develop that further, would that have any impact in terms of the recommended option that we've got at the moment?
No, I don't believe so. I think because the development of the wetland area and the current recommendation are not necessarily overlapping in a way that they would have that kind of effect.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Stacey. Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you. Just very briefly looking at option 4. At any stage, did you look at the costings, what the costing would be to fence those areas off?
Yes.
What was the costings?
I believe the cost to fence off all of the areas shown in option 4 was around $51,000.
51,000.
Yes, around that, and that would be cost of fence as well as installing gates and signs.
Yeah, that's total. Thank you.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Stacey. Just want to know, looking at page 150, and looking at that summary table of submissions response, what weighting do you give for the response from submitters? So when it says do not support proposal 82%, what weighting do you give that in terms of making your decision to give us an option?
It's a fair question, Councillor. We would never provide our advice to you based on a total popularity or not of a proposal. It's generally what we're trying to understand is if we know the views of the community, what those views are, those inputs, what's important in terms of the intention of the council going forward. So while it is a very unpopular proposal on these figures, that's only part of the weighting, I guess, the total weighting we would give to the council in terms of how much it is important.
So what makes up the rest of the decision then, if it's not just based on what the community is telling us?
Sure. So the other things are whether or not it is aligning with the strategic vision of the council, whether or not it is meeting our other policy and strategy ideas or ideals, whether or not it's legal. We may have a request from the community to do something that is very popular for them but is not legally achievable for us. Whether or not we can afford it, whether or not it's achievable, all those sorts of things. So the popularity of the proposal is one part of the total advice we would be providing for you.
So Councillor Johnson's already asked you whether or not option 6 is currently legal, and you said yes, it is.
It is. It's a little bit out of kilter with our current policy.
So we just have to adjust our policy settings if we wanted to go forward with that.
Yeah, and that is something that can occur anytime through the normal policy review process.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report. Probably follows on a similar line of questioning. My questions come through the themes in the analysis of submission. And in 14, your comment is options that were available would either reduce the on-leash area or keep the whole area off-leash and offer alternative solutions. And I wondered what the alternative solutions were if we keep the whole area off-leash.
So if we were to keep the whole area off leash, there are some other things that we could be doing. The ones that come to mind are like a really, I guess, easy win for us would be to provide some more informative instructional signage at the reserve that says, could be as simple as respect all park users here, these are the rules. If you are having issues with an uncontrolled or aggressive dog, you can contact this number. Certainly one of the things we've found through this consultation process is that our data doesn't accurately map across what we're hearing through these submissions. So that would be an easy one. That's something else. We could also do, I guess, perhaps more engagement in education through our usual processes, those sorts of things. Those are low-cost, easy win, I think, and would potentially have a very good impact on...
Okay, thank you for that. And then my other question was in the officer comment on themes 15 and 16, you talked about making the reserve officially a dog park, that's something we could look at doing. So I wondered what would be the benefit of that, maybe in terms of this conversation, and how would we go about making it officially a dog park?
I might pass that question to Aaron to answer.
He looks overjoyed.
He does, doesn't he?
Do you want me to repeat that, Aaron? Yeah, give you a moment. So it was, the officer comment on themes 15 and 16 was that something council could look at was making the reserve officially a dog park rather than the kind of anecdotal dog park nature of it, and I wanted to know what would be the benefit of doing that, what changes by making something officially a dog park, and if we wanted to do that, how could that happen?
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the question. I guess officially making it a dog park and some sort of resolution of council would be a clarity of purpose of the reserve. So that would make it clear that that's council's intention, that that's a core purpose of the reserve. Otherwise, it's really just a in-name process. There's not an official process that needs to go through in terms of Reserves Act or anything else.
So the benefit will be in community clarity about the primary purpose of that reserve. And that just needs a resolution of council to do it.
That would do it, yes.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Aaron. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regards to options, can I understand the difference of option 2 versus option 3, where if so the first question would be, could in option 3, where there's frontage for both off-leash and for the children and barbecue area, could we have access, an entrance for both in that design?
I don't quite follow.
So in the car park at the bottom of the image of option 3, it looks like there could be access to the playground and barbecue area, which is depicted in the yellow, and still an entrance to the dog off-leash area from the car park.
Possibly. I think there is, we have, Aaron might be able to provide more advice on this. There is a certain number of entrances to the reserve that we are permitted to have. I think potentially vehicle entrances are some of them, but certainly that front area is where dogs and other users are funneling together. It was identified as an area of higher risk.
Councillor, hopefully I'm interpreting the question correctly, but at the front of the reserve at the moment there is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 gates, I think. There's a main gate which is easier to see, and then some smaller gates along the frontage. So in terms of figure 4, option 3, there would be, the main gate would enter the on-lead area, and the series of alternate gates that are along on the front of that car park area, they would be entering the off-lead area as it sits at the moment. So there would be alternatives to enter the on or off-lead area.
Okay, thank you. And
as it is, yeah.
And as a continuation of that, to avoid the limitation of those with disability to get access to an on-lead area, the option 3, kind of with the split frontage, could achieve that. I was just wondering, and those that wanted to desire having their dogs with the wetland, why option 3 wasn't favoured over option 2 in the recommendation?
Through the chair, I believe option 2 and option 3 had many of the same advantages and disadvantages. Option 3 had the disadvantage of requiring some reconfiguration of the disc golf course. We understand from the disc golf community that they wouldn't necessarily be in favour of that. It would also require additional budget. The other part of it is that it is likely to be more visually jarring, that particular arrangement for the reserve, given its open rural character.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. That's all our questions. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks, Stacey, for your report. Okay, we have some recommendations there, and on screen, I'll just read through them first. One, that the council received the report titled Deliberations Advice, Proposed Linklater Reserve on Leash Dog Control Area, presented on 8th of October 2025, and I'll ask if they be separated, please. Number 2, that the council adopt option 2, which is making the area at the Linklater Reserve from Kelvin Grove Road car park up to the first tree line behind the BMX track, dogs on leash, encompassing the wetlands area and children's playgrounds and play spaces, but not the aeroplane, as described in figure 3. reading into the detail there. And then number 3, that the council instruct the chief executive prepare an amended dog control policy and dog control bylaw for adoption. So I'm happy to move number 1 at this stage and look for a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. But I will open it up and go to Councillor Johnson for the remainder.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So what I would like to do is to move option 6. So that would, I don't know if you want that to be an amendment or an additional recommendation. Alternative. Just an alternative?
It's an
alternative recommendation, yeah. So, which is status quo. And I believe that Councillor Zabellin is happy to second that. So would you like me to speak to that now? So I just want to say, first of all, that I do think it was entirely reasonable of us to ask the question as to whether or not we should consider some on-leash area at Linklater Park in response to genuine concerns brought to us by the Kelvin Grove Community Association. So I certainly supported asking the question. However, I think the best time to have made the decision not to make this an on-leash area was after we got the overwhelming feedback in the pre-consultation review. So if you recall, there was a kind of a pre-consultation done, and the overwhelming feedback we got was that people didn't want on-lead. However, the next best time to make the decision to keep it off-lead, in my opinion, is now. That doesn't mean that at some time in the future it might not be up for another discussion. It doesn't rule it out forever and a day. But the reasons I think that we should retain the status quo and retain it as off-lead are as follows. The first thing is, I don't think that the case that there's a significant problem with out-of-control dogs off-leash in Linklater Park has been established. Yes, there are statistics of dog attacks in Kelvin Grove that are equivalent to dog attacks in 2 or 3 other suburbs around the city, and there's no indication whether those attacks have occurred in or out of reserves, in or out of Linklater Reserve. I know people have claimed that there's been underreporting of dog attacks at Linklater, but I wouldn't have expected that to be significantly different to underreporting of dog attacks anywhere else in the city. So that's the first point. The second point is, and some submitters made this, and I think it's worth considering, there isn't actually any guarantee that having dogs on leash makes it safer. In fact, many dogs react more aggressively when they're on leash than when they're off leash. So looking to address safety issues by insisting dogs be on leash isn't the solution that people might think it is if you understand dog behaviour. And also, if a portion of the park was made dog on leash, there would be an increased density of dogs in the off leash area, which could actually lead to an increase of problems. So I'm not convinced, even if you believe that there's a problem to be addressed, that making a portion of the reserve on leash would address those problems. Thirdly, we've got a very good facility at Linklater that we've heard is hugely appreciated by the community, and the diversity of submissions that we received around the different types of people and the value that they get from being able to exercise their dogs there, particularly the disability community, particularly women exercising dogs on the road, I thought was very useful feedback, and we'd do well to take that on board. The overwhelming feedback we got was that fencing wasn't wanted. And I do believe that we should take into account the views of almost, well, actually, if you include the petitions, over 1,000 people, the vast majority of whom don't want fencing. And my next point is that there's no need to spend any more money on this. We've done due diligence. We've gone out and looked. We've asked the question. I don't think we need to spend more money now on fencing a part or a smaller part of the reserve, and we haven't really explored whether or not that would be acceptable to submitters, despite the officer's comments that some of them would reluctantly accept it. I just don't think that it's not wanted. I don't believe we would be making it any safer, and I think we should accept that we've gone out, we've done the consultation, and we should listen to the feedback. So I'd ask for your support on this. Thank you.
Councillor Spellin.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, I'm seconding this alternate recommendation for all the very excellent points made by Councillor Johnson, but also we heard a very consistent message from users of the reserve, which was how valued and enjoyed this particular reserve is, and most people shared views to the effect of, we love it, please don't take it away from us, and how rare is it that we get that kind of feedback. Particularly compelling for me were the submissions which were describing the user experience of disabled or injured and recovering people and how they navigate this reserve with their dogs on pathways of varying quality, depending on where you go. There are clearly places within that reserve that they already can and can't go, and particularly made more difficult when there are gates to navigate. There's also, I think, a very consistent theme, which we do hear a lot in other dog control related issues, that unless we are actively and visibly enforcing on-leash rules in reserves, then some people will just ignore them. And the play areas are already off limits to dogs under the current rules, and we don't routinely enforce that. So in practice, it's effectively more of a social contract in terms of how it operates. And we heard that most people do abide by that. And that's across all of our parks and playgrounds, not just Linklater. But we did hear we could do better with our signage about those rules. More broadly, we did hear that Kelvin Grove lacks amenity and that Linklater itself could use further upgrades. I would really like to see us incorporate that feedback in our forward planning to see what we can do to make those things better. But I have heard a fair amount of quite disturbing chatter from people who think this decision's already been made and that we've made up our minds, that we're going to do what we want, regardless of how many submissions we get from users of the reserve saying we prefer no change. And we know that's not the reason that we're doing this. We know we were asked to consider it by members of the community, but that's not how the optics are playing out. That's not how people are understanding this work. Many, many, many more members of the community have clearly said to us, we love it the way it is. Please don't take it away from us. I don't think we should. Kia ora.
Councillor Happer.
Thank you, and just to be very brief, I totally agree with what has been said by Councillor Johnson and Councillor Sabellin. You know, we had a lot of submissions in here, 795, which equated to 82% saying they did not support the proposal, and we have to listen to that. We've got to start listening to what our community wants. When they put submissions in, we go through genuine consultation, we have to listen to what our community is saying, and this is what they said in this instance. And we just have to start listening and taking that advice through consultation, and that's why I totally support this proposal that's been put forward by Councillor Johnson. So I totally support the status quo. That's what this is for. Linklater is for the whole community. It's not just for Kelvin Grove. I used to live in Kelvin Grove, but this is for the whole community and not just for Kelvin Grove. So leave it as it is as status quo. Thank you.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm a bit of a Johnny-come-lately to this conversation, so I wasn't at the original committee where it came through, so it's been quite fascinating to watch almost from the outside. And let me just say, the community don't leave you almost on the outside when they feel very passionately about something. So I've had many emails and conversations with people appealing to my sensibilities as a dog owner. I have to say, my dog is not the dog in question here. I don't use Linklater because my dog has very poor recall and is very reactive when on leash, and so we don't go. And I think that's part of my read of the feedback we've had from the community. Those who want it on leash and those who want it off leash is actually that social contract which relies on dog owners to manage their dogs appropriately in public space is actually at the core of this conversation. And I was encouraged by the comment from the officer that more signage about how this space might work if we go with option 6 would be a sensible thing to consider. I'd like to see that happen. The submissions ranged wildly across the different issues that people saw. I particularly found compelling some of the situations about safety that have been mentioned, particularly about women walking alone. I was amused by the very much the value that people see in the opportunity for the combined exercising of dogs and children, that they could all run off-leash and that could be managed well. I gave particular weight in my consideration, and I appreciated Councillor Harper's questioning about how we give weight to the different elements of the conversation. But for me, I gave weight to the comments about the availability of public space, that we have many, many parks and reserves that have play opportunities for children built in, but much fewer fenced, large-scale opportunities for dogs to be off-leash, and there was particularly submission 766, which I thought was excellent in that regard. Obviously, we all share concerns about dogs in children's play areas. I think we take that as read. That is a concern, but our rules already speak to that, and it comes back to that idea of the social contract and also maybe some informative signage about what is and isn't acceptable in the space. From this, I'd appeal to the community who want this to be off-leash, and should this go through, which I very much hope it does, who've kept that status quo, I'd appeal to that community to be very careful around the children-focused areas of the park. This is really a case of, you know, if you get what you want, you have to look after that. And so to manage your dogs around those wider community spaces, as is already established under our rules, would be a really helpful step in giving effect to that social contract. So I'm happy to support option 6. I think our whole council processes for consultation do make this kind of thing difficult, because pre-consultation is not a thing that is well understood out there. So when we've done pre-consultation and then we do consultation, the community feels like we're trying to pull a fast one in some way. And Councillor Spelling was absolutely right. I've heard the same concerns about that. So status quo, I think, is the way to go. It's certainly what the vast majority of the community who've expressed a preference have said in this case. So I'll be supporting option 6, and I hope that you do too.
Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and this is a point in time, I think, when Councillor Johnson probably knows that I'm mostly reliable as opposed to be completely reliable. Look, I'm actually going to speak against this particular amendment. The reasons for this is because, yes, you're right, we have to listen to our community. What our community says in this chamber is very, very important. However, if we background what actually did happen with this particular case, was that we had a group of Kelvin Grove residents that came to us with a petition, and they said they would actually like parts of this to be on leash. And of course, when things like that happen, sometimes you have some action and you get a very, very vociferous reaction, and I think that is actually what we got from the community. But during the questioning of submitters through the submissions process, I put a lot of questions to submitters, and I thought that was actually a lot of room there for some compromise. The issue that we've got with Linklater is that it was a large piece of land which was open, and originally it was just an open area. And of course, what we've actually done subsequently is we've actually then incorporated play areas and other amenities, which has created some incompatibility with the off-leash environment that we currently have at the present time. And there are some risks, of course, with having incompatible amenities and rules around what people can actually do with dogs. I'm a dog owner myself. I, like Councillor Bowen, have got a dog that has got zero recall. If he smells a rabbit, he's gone. And that's just how he is, you know. And he is the most docile dog, but he can be a risk to children, right? Because when he smells a rabbit and he's running, mate, he doesn't care where the rabbits, doesn't care where the kids are, he'll just bowl them, right? He's just crazy, right? So, and that's just about dogs. Like, you get out of your car with your dog off leash at Linklater Park, the first thing those dogs do is they just go for it, right? And then they do their doings, and eventually they'll come back to the owner. So there are some control issues there for dog owners. I just turn now to theme 15 in the document. And submitters had said it was always intended as a dog park. And the summary around that says it was never intended as a dog park. It became used by dog owners because of its size and being undeveloped. It became this kind of dog park after the 2011 review of the dog control bylaw. And a lot of submitters actually opposed it being on leash. And that's how it actually came to be what it is. And then, of course, we've had the subsequent installation of other amenities, and that has inadvertently caused conflict across user groups. Now, as a council, we've actually got a responsibility to try and resolve those conflicts and those incompatibilities. And option 6 does not do that. It actually ignores other users who want to use Linklater Park and actually can't use it with the freedom that they actually would like to use. And I just remind everybody too, is that the Manawatu River Walkway was originally off-leash. But subsequently, council has actually changed the rules, and between certain parts on the River Walkway is now designated as being on-leash because of that incompatibility. So I urge you, please, don't support option 6. I actually support option 2, and I'll be more than happy to talk to that later. Thank you.
Look, colleagues, one good thing about the selection process is you get out and about and you go and explore a few areas. And I had the pleasure, or perhaps not the pleasure, of walking around all of Kelvin Grove delivering pamphlets and everything else. And you actually get to see the amount of playgrounds and reserves that we've got around. And certainly I counted, and I've just done a map search, in and around the Kelvin Grove Linklater area there are 7 other playgrounds within that space, some within 150 metres of Linklater, some several hundred metres away. Delstrom Reserve, Pineapple Heights Reserve, Robert Park, Frederick Kroll Reserve, Kelvin Grove Park and Peter Hall Drive, Solano Park, Schnell Reserve, all with amenities around playgrounds. So I sort of push back on some of the commentary that there isn't opportunities there for other users. But the real reason I'm going to support what's on the screen in terms of option 6 is I went up to open some seats with the original owners, the Linklaters, and with the Lions Club. And it was interesting, Ross said to me, isn't it great how this 77-acre park is now being used? And it was interesting, his view on it as the original owner. And Councillor Hancock's right, it has evolved. And as I was walking around with Ross and a whole lot of other Lions Club members, quite a few dog owners saw me and said, you're not going to change things, are you? So it is the region's premier dog park. We have literally hundreds of reserves, and in that area alone, 8 different other reserves or playgrounds. Yes, there will be some level of compromise here, but what I experienced firsthand was the amount of joy it gave dog owners and the dogs in a very, very large area. So I'm of the view that there's nothing wrong with status quo. Are we going looking for a problem? Is there a significant issue with the park? Is there significant dog attacks there? Look, I appreciate Kelvin Grove Community Group coming and raising this with us, but I think we've seen that there isn't. And look, if we're proven wrong, we do have an option to change things in the future. But I favour the status quo because I do think we're going looking for a problem. So I do hope you support it. Councillor Wood.
Councillors, this is one of those decisions I've probably struggled with the most actually in recent memory in this council term, because although I'm in politics, I really don't like letting people down and I don't like disappointing people. And I know whichever decision that we make today, we are going to disappoint people in our community. We're going to disappoint people who love using Linklater Reserve to exercise their dog. We're going to disappoint people who've had a negative experience there and would like to see us make a change. The first thing I'll say is that I will stand by our decision to consult the community on this. And I think we perhaps need to review how we do pre-consultation, because when you're asking the community a vague question of would you support some changes or not, that's not a proposal. And I think when we go to people, we need to give people a choice of this is what we're talking about or not. And so I think we did the right thing, and I appreciate why some councillors may not agree with me, but I think we did the right thing to consult. And I do disagree with those submitters who said there's just absolutely no problem. I mean, on page 175, there's excerpts of submissions. We've made the decision to no longer walk our clients' dogs at Linklater due to repeated incidents involving off-leash dogs. I can confidently say Linklater's become an unsafe environment, not just for dogs, but for people too. Another person who talked about on Friday 18th of July, their 15-year-old son got bitten in his back at the bottom of a flying fox, and that the dog owner then left with no recourse, so no ability to report that owner of that dog. So I reject the argument that people made that how dare council consult on this, there's nothing to consult on, there's no problem at all. I think that there was genuine concern raised and that we did the right thing in putting that to the community. And personally, I won't take my dog to Linklater. I've only got a small dog. I don't want to be around that much density of large dogs running off leash. I don't feel safe there. But the thing that all of these submitters said when they said they didn't feel safe is that they have then subsequently made the decision to no longer use Linklater. That's the decision I make, the decision Councillor Bowe and Councillor Hancock make, and that's the decision many people in our community who don't feel safe at that park make. And so I think that that is a reasonable choice for people in the community to make. And as the Mayor says, there are multiple other parks in that area, and I struggle to understand the argument of why having one exception of the parks in Kelvin Grove, where dogs are allowed off leash, prevents people from utilising the other areas in the community. Like Councillor Bellin, I've been really frustrated or disappointed in the way that people have spoke about this process, and the many submitters and emails and messages I've got going, you buggers, you've already decided what you're going to do, this is a giant waste of time, how dare we? My personal view, if it was just up to me, would be for option 2 or 3. I think that's a fair compromise. In fact, I thought what we put to the community at the start was a fair compromise, but I would be a hypocrite to stand in this chamber after the annual budgets and long-term plans and criticise councillors for not listening to public feedback, to then myself not listen to public feedback when it was 82% to 14. If this had been 50-50, we could have been having a different conversation here today. Non-dog owners make up the majority of our community, and so I would have expected if there was a passionate view amongst non-dog owners, we would have seen that reflected in the consultation. What I saw in the consultation was those that own dogs are the primary users, they're really enjoying it, and that those that don't own dogs, it would appear, aside from a few, don't seem particularly concerned as they can utilise other areas. Why don't I support doing option 2 to 4 today? Well, they're not what we consulted on, and I didn't vote, for example, for the 50-50 capital value, land value decision when that came to us at council, because it wasn't an option we consulted on. We consulted on 70-30, full or none. And so I can't really stand here today and then support us doing something where we know there's certainly significant opposition to the full proposal. I actually don't think we know if we went with, say, option 3, what the community view would be. I don't know if that would be majority in favour. I'm sure it would be closer than 82-14, but it might still be 65 or 60 or 55% opposed. I don't genuinely think we've got a good enough picture of what some sort of compromise in the middle would look like to make a decision today, unless we wanted to go for another round of consultation in the community, which I don't think is the right, and judging from that reaction, I don't think is the right view in the room today. So down the track, I'd certainly be interested in exploring, if the concern persists, some sort of compromise along the lines of option 2 to 4. I certainly think that there were some interesting suggestions that came through the submissions, one around CCTV, and I'm put it on the table now. If I'm back around at the next annual budget, I'll be proposing that we look at a budget along those lines, because there is an issue that if you have a dog that, for example, one at the Flying Fox, where a dog attacks and then front the owner takes away without any chance to get their details or anything like that, we actually do have no way of then dealing with that problem. So I think having cameras here that we could refer to when attacks are reported would be useful. I think better signage would be useful. I think better presence of dog control ranges would be useful. And so I don't think this is the end of the story, but, and I do apologise to the Kelvin Grove Community Association and those who have had negative experiences there, on balance, I can't vote to make the change, and I will support what's been put up.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have been going to the Linklater block basically before it was even open with my dogs. And all the time I've been going up there, I've never yet seen a dog fight. I've not seen anyone being bitten. My dog is under control. I have lost count of how many times people would come up to me and say, can my daughter, my son, pat your dog? And you put her on a sit and a stay, and our kids will come and pat her and socialise with her. And I see that happening all the time up there. Kids that never come across dogs, never get to meet a dog, go up there and they meet dogs that are 99% under control. And most of the owners up there, I find, are extremely responsible. And after, as the Mayor says, the initial burst, those dogs come back and they stay pretty close to their owners. I can see in time an option 4 type thing being brought in where certain areas we fenced off. But at the moment, having the Linklater block as a lead off-leash area is the most fantastic thing for a dog owner, especially like I got German Shepherd. She loves it up there. When I set her off, she bolts and she goes round in circles and she comes back when she's called. And I find that most of the dog owners are there like that as well. Just at the end of last year, I was up there with my dog and she was playing tag with a couple of standard poodles. And I got talking to the lady owner, and we were sitting in the band rotunda up there, and the dogs were going zooming around. She brought her dogs up quite regularly from Wellington because she said it was the best dog exercise area she has found. Now, other people come to the Linklater block from out of town just for that simple reason. It is very, very hard to find an area where bigger dogs can let off steam and exercise within New Zealand. I've had German Shepherds since I was 14 years old. Unless you know a farmer or someone like that who will let your dog exercise, it's very hard to let a dog go up and just be itself. We've got one of the best dog parks in New Zealand, and we're known for it. Let's keep it that way. I do realise and I do recognise that in time an option 4 type thing may have to happen. But let's keep it a dog off-leash area because it does so much more good for the dogs than having them stuck on leads all the time. When I go up to the Linklater block with my dog in the back seat of the car, as soon as she realises where she's going, she's up, her ears are pointed, her tail's wagging. She loves it. And she's under control. Please, councillors, don't take away from our dog owners the ability to enjoy our dogs in their natural. Let them have the Linklater block. As the Mayor says, we have hundreds of other recreational areas within our city where people can go for picnics, where they can go to take their kids for swings. Let us have this Linklater block as an off-lead area for the owners of the dogs in the city. Thank you.
Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to support the recommendations before us, and I pretty much concur with many of the views expressed already by many of my colleagues, and also share the concerns that have been raised by the Kelvin Grove Community Association and other submitters as well who have spoken in favour of the petition. But for me personally, I've had I live in an area, and I've had the privilege of walking my dog on a number of occasions on Linklater Park, and my experience of that of the park yes, I do have a dog, and my experience of the park lately, since I started using it, has actually been has been great. And most dog owners that I've come across when I'm walking the dog there have actually been very responsible dog owners, and I haven't had any issues around there. But the reason why I'm supporting this, the recommendation before us, simply is because of the overwhelming majority of submitters who have told us to leave the park as it is. And I think that it's important for us as a council that, when there's an overwhelming majority of people actually who have told us, 795 out of 665 submitters have told us to leave the park as it is. And it's important for us that we are seen as being responsive, not just in relation to those who spoke against the petition, but also responsive in terms of also taking into consideration as well the views that have been expressed by those who have put the petition forward as well. It's not saying that we do not hear your concerns or we do not hear your voice, but it's simply saying that there isn't enough that warrants us to actually make this change. And as has been rightly pointed earlier on as well, we have many recreational areas around the Linklater Park. So just like Councillor Wood, if you do not want to take your dog to Linklater Park, you can take it to Celino Park and go for a good run. There's plenty of space down there as well for your recreational activities and the likes. And the other reason why I also wanted to leave it as it is was largely around the advantages that have been outlined in the report, which was that retaining current controls and level of service will avoid disruption to the reserve for users who are satisfied with the current off-leash arrangement. And also one of the reasons why I wanted to actually support in favor of this was around maintaining consistency in enforcement and avoiding the need for additional consultation, which has been highlighted earlier on, and also infrastructure changes that may come with us not going with the status quo. But all in all I wanted to say was just that, the reason why I'm supporting this overall is largely around the overwhelming majority of submitters that have said that we should leave it as it is, and I think for us it's important that we should be responsive to those submitters. Thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say a couple of things just to give some context. One is that the size of the reserve, you mentioned 77 acres. I think it'd still be a fantastic dog park, even if it was like 57 acres. It's like the fact that it's so large and we can't accommodate others' desires is really that's an anomaly to me. Like, it's not like we're taking away a large dog pound. A dog off. And why I'm on the dog pound, I'm just joking, sorry, that came out wrong. But a large off-league dog area. We're not taking it away. It's the passion of it, how everyone wants it, and everyone thinks we could actually have both and. And it's really around the timing. I think that the expectation now is for us not to have much change. I'm actually sympathetic to the options that have been provided, which is a range around the 2 and 3 option. And at the very least, having the barbecue and the evolutions squared off would seem reasonable to me. Just in the height of how everyone's gone, oh no, don't give us only half, I just don't think it's the right timing. What I would be emphasising with a view to is suggesting that, future-proofing it down the track, that the other car park that comes off the other side, to actually have some amenity there around evolution blocks and some sealed pathway for disability access and those kind of provisions, because actually there's a lot of kit that's in the front of that front end, which is for young families, and it is for barbecues, and there's not every reserve has a barbecue, and not every reserve has a washroom. And so I'm just saying that actually there's a reasonable approach to think that we could cater for everybody, and not for everyone just hate the fencing that comes up the front end. Because clearly, in my view, option 3, and that's why I was questioning, could actually have an access for on lead, not exclusive or excluding dogs, but for families to run with their kids and use the Flying Fox and the other different amenity, and have a barbecue without dogs running around to give them a surprise, and still open up to the wet reserve and go up through to the other 50 plus acres of land that's available. So I'm mentioning I'm sympathetic, but again, I'll support the recommendations before us because I think they are the ones that will bring the confidence of the community along with us. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, sir. Promise to be brief. I wasn't sure what way I was going to go when I walked in to the chamber this morning, but I'll certainly support option 6. I went to the information sessions, and I was surprised at some of the aggression there. So I'd just like to stand and say thank you to the officers. You know, I realise this was a difficult process, and I don't have a dog anymore, and I've talked about my little dog Watson before. Watson the Bichon Frise. I only took him to Linklater once, but Watson didn't have ears, and I think he looked like a little sheep to some, and so I quickly left. We didn't go back. But I borrowed a dog to go to Linklater. I borrowed Mars the Golden Retriever, and I actually, while I was there, I thought I miss having a dog until I had to get out the plastic bag. And I'm actually still finding Mars all over me, so perhaps the hairless dog is the way to go. Look, I think this is the best option. It's hard to keep everybody happy. You're never going to succeed doing that, but I'll support option 6. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, Your Worship. I'm very similar to Councillor Hancock and also Councillor Dennison. I think that when this came to us, there was genuine concern from the Kelvin Grove Residents Association, no doubt about that. I've also met and spoken to that young person who was bitten when he was sliding, going on the swinging along. And I'd hate for us to minimise the hurt that he had, and he wasn't the only one. And I know that his family were very concerned as well, as we all would be if we knew that happened. I think one of the things that stood out for me for option 2 was that submitters, most of them saw maybe option 2 as even though it wasn't their first option, it certainly was something that they felt was a compromise. And I think also, as raised by Councillor Dennison, I think it's about between 20.3 and 25.5 hectares of land. That's a large mass of land. And I think if we can come to a compromise where people feel safe. I know I have dogs as well, and I know that even when kids are playing around, sometimes they get excited and they themselves want to get involved and they can't help it, but you know, there's a risk there. We would be naive to think that there wasn't a risk. So I want to mitigate that risk. And I do think that there's sufficient for us to make that compromise. Also the fact that we can accommodate option 2 within the current budget. That's another consideration. So I think that's my little spiel on that, but I do support option 2. Kia ora.
Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Couldn't miss the opportunity. I've got to agree with Councillor Hancock and the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Dennison. That is a really, really big area up there, quite big. And it may mean dog owners have to go for a little bit more walk to let their dogs off leash, but some could do with the extra walking. And I think we shouldn't wait for somebody to be attacked by a dog that's off leash to say, oh, we got it wrong, we should really change it now. We make alterations to our roads all the time, saying that it's better to have it this way so we don't have any accidents. Maybe this one needs to be seriously looked at as well, that we can compromise, we can make it viable for both parties. Yes, we need to listen to our community, but we also need to think of safety for those. One attack by a dog can ruin somebody's life completely. Thank you.
And right, a reply back to you, Councillor.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks everyone for engaging in the debate, and I think there were some good points made, for and against. Just to address some of the points that I think were interesting, should we, quote, go for a compromise, go for option 2 or 3? There's a couple of reasons why I think we shouldn't do that. The first one is that we didn't actually give people the option of submitting on option 2 or 3. And so we don't actually know whether that's what people would want or not. We went out on the option which included a much larger area, and so I think it's a bit dangerous to go for a third way, if you want to put it like that, without reconsulting. Secondly, I mean, I do take the point that where you have a park with people with dogs off lead and children's play areas and barbecues, that there's a risk of user conflict. Absolutely there is, and I don't deny that. I don't think the answer to that, in this case, is to have one area fenced off and only having dogs on lead in that area. I think if you're feeling concerned about the fact that there are dogs off lead, there are plenty of other parks and options, both with barbecues and, much better actually, children's play areas, that you can take your kids to, and there's no conflict because there's no dogs there at all. So I think the way of resolving conflict is better to have areas where dogs are off leash and areas where dogs are just not around. You know, having said that, there shouldn't be any dogs in the children's play area, but I understand it happens occasionally. The business about the area, you know, the amount of the park that we're fencing off, the submissions weren't, some of them were about the size of the area, but the submissions were often about what facilities would be fenced off. Fencing off the wetland would take away the opportunity for dogs to go into the water. Fencing off the front part of the park makes it difficult for mobility, for people who have mobility issues. It makes it less safe if you're a woman on your own, and we had many of those submissions. So I think it's much less about the total area and much more about what part of the park we're talking about would be fenced. And, you know, in terms of safety, there's always a risk around dogs, the same as there's always a risk around vehicles. You know, there's never going to be a situation where we can say that the presence of a dog is 100% safe, just the same as it's never 100% safe when you cross the road. A lot of the responsibility rests with the dog owner, and there are significant penalties for dog owners if their dogs do, you know, attack someone. It's not as if, you know, that people are laissez-faire about it. People are concerned about it to the point of view that they don't take their dogs to areas that are off lead if they don't feel that they can control them off lead or recall them. So safety, I'm not denying safety is an issue, But I think trying to get to a situation where we can say, well, that's 100% safe then because we fenced that off, I don't think that gives us that safety at all. A safer option is for people that are feeling concerned about that to use a different area. So, look, I'll just come back to the fact that we consulted on this and the vast majority of people want status quo. And I think that's what we should do. So, hope for your support. Thank you.
All right, councillors, we will vote, please. On, on number 2. Please see that second one, if you can put a 2 in front of that, please. Thank you. On number 2. And that has passed 13 votes for and 3 against. All right, can we come back to... Okay, so we just come back to number 1, and I'm not going to put it back out for comments. So we will now vote on number 1, please. That has passed 16 votes for and none against. Thank you. Right. Okay, we move through to number 12, and that is around the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road, accelerating the project timeframe. And I'll invite James McGill, our Senior Transport Planner, up to speak to that, please. Page 243. Yeah, thanks. Val, if you want to have that discussion out there, please.
Tēnā koutou katoa, James Gale, Senior Transport Planner. So this paper is about following up on the 27th of August Economic Growth Committee, seeking to speed up the timeline for the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road indicative business case. I'd highlight that the first attachment has 2 timelines noted. The one in blue is the original timeline for the project that we had agreed with GHD. The green highlights the sped up timeline to meet the 1 October completion date. We're currently working to that faster timeline. Just the way the timeline worked, we needed to start as soon as we got that confirmed. That being said, if the recommendation is to go back to the original timeline, we will slow the process down to make sure we work within council budgets. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Just 3.2 on page 245 talks about even if the project is accelerated, the project would be complete by the 1st of October, and that the general election would be in October. So when do you think that political parties would be determining their policies and priorities?
I probably can't comment on when political parties will be...
I'll just get our strategy planner, manager, to speak there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, typically, as we all know, through general elections, there's commitments made, well before the October date. What we have done, though, is, and as it's noted in the report, is we're accelerating this business case as quickly as we can. So the advice back from the consultants in terms of, this is effectively as quickly as we can deliver this project. As paragraph 3.2 says, we anticipate that by accelerating it, we will have more detailed outputs that we can use to share our advocacy during the course of 2026 than what we otherwise would if we stayed to the current timeframe.
Yep, thank you. And just looking at recommendation 2, that council increase the cap on the professional services budget, do officers believe that this work is more important than all the other existing work that's been covered in the professional services budget currently?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you know, the existing professional services budget is committed to delivering on current levels of service, and as you know, as detailed in the LTP and the annual budget. You know, we've got a number of activities. I can certainly speak for strategic planning. There are a number of activities underway at the moment that are placing significant pressure on the existing professional services budget. The Plan Change G Environment Court appeal is one of those, which is placing significant pressure. So certainly there isn't an ability to accelerate this business case within the existing professional services budget.
Was any consideration given by officers to anything else being reprioritised in order to accelerate this within the existing cap on the professional services budget?
Not specifically, but during the course of the year, we continually, you know, prioritise as best we can those projects that we know of high interest to elected members of the community, or we have commitments or legal commitments to deliver. You know, we will always continue to do that with the professional services budget, but the resolution that officers were asked to come back with was, you know, what will it take to accelerate the business case? And the report addresses that.
Okay, thanks. And just lastly, page 247 with that timeline, when I'm looking at the October 2026 part, is if this was supported today, would that just speed it up by around 2 months?
The timeline around the August, October, so the phase 4 and phase 5, that's kind of the final touches, the finishing touches, so to speak. I guess the sped up timeline would mean that, as per the GM's comments, that I guess the option identification process will be done sooner as well, but it does roughly amount to about a couple months, yes.
Okay, and just finally, sorry, in 3.2, when it was suggested that some of that information would be available in the lead up, would we, based on that timeline, would some of that information also be available even if we didn't accelerate the timeline, given that the time frame is really only about 2 months apart?
Information around the shortlisting and the preferred option will be, but it will be much closer to the election period, I guess. Ultimately, it's just a decision around how long before.
Okay, that's all from me, thank you.
Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, James. Look, sorry, I've got some more questions just around the timeline. The document says that the preferred option and road alignment could be known before the 1st of October 2026. Do we have an understanding of how much before the 1st of October that's likely to be?
So, under the timeline, phase 2 and phase 3 of the timeline is when we'll go from, I guess, the long list through to the short list to the preferred option. So, around May, June, theoretically, under the proposed timeline is roughly when we'd have an idea of what the road corridor, what the preferred option would be from the business case.
Okay, thank you. Look, our FDS actually talks about, I suppose, the implications for the Bunnythorpe community and ensuring that any option does not actually cut Bunnythorpe in half, so to speak. How does that kind of sort of fit with a consultation period where, you know, Bunnythorpe is likely to be the most affected by Pinati?
So certainly, so under both timelines, we always factored into the process engagement with the community. And so that's being planned to be done at the, I guess, the phase 2, the long list stage. There's, through that phase, we'll be engaging with Bunnythorpe as well as the other impacted communities. In terms of the timeline, the current timeline would place that around January, February, so early next year, whereas under the sped up timeline, we're probably looking at November, December to do that.
Sorry, so you're talking about consultation with the Bunnythorpe community in December this year?
Under the sped up timeline, it would be late November, early December.
In terms of genuine consultation, is there some risks around that?
I think through the process, the business case process is a very prescriptive process, so how we do the engagement will be slightly different. It will be more of workshops rather than I guess building in the options. I think there's potential for risk if we sped it up any further. The timing, I guess, ultimately is just working in with what we can deliver as far as speeding up the process.
Could I'll get the GM to speak to it, please.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll certainly be, the consultation engagement on the Ring Road business case, won't be done in isolation from other conversations that we've had with the Bunnythorpe community. So we'll be certainly, that work that's been done on the village plan will be shared with the project team. That will help form the basis of the way in which we're engaging with that community, holding those conversations. So it's not a piece of engagement that occurs in isolation. I'm aware there's been some recent communication from the Bunnythorpe community expressing concern, and they've talked about their long-held views around the Ring Road, which the officers and the project team are aware of. As James has said as well, we're conscious that, it's noted in the report that accelerating it even further than what's proposed would place risks around that engagement. But the key thing is, the accelerated program is not proposing to do anything different than what was proposed under the current program. It's just about doing it sooner. So the same methodology, the same level of engagement, the same tactics, the same methods are all being used. So the project team haven't gone away. They've compressed the time frame, but that's really about them repurposing their overall capacity alongside officers, as opposed to doing anything fundamentally different in terms of the way in which the engagement occurs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team. I just have a question on page 244, because the figures are a bit all over the show and I'm not quite following them. So in table 1 it says that the budgeted cost is 1.14 million. Then in 2.6 it says, but actually the GHD contract's 670 plus 100 plus 50, which works out to 820,000, which is what I believe we're currently budgeting. And then in 2.7 it says if we did this alternative it would be 569 plus, I assume, 100 from year 1 plus 152 for year 3. Does it also need to be plus 50,000 for the review business case? Or is there any total cost difference between what we're currently planning and what this would be, or is it purely about timing?
This is purely about timing. The costs are consistent. It's just about how much is spread across this financial year versus next financial year.
So the total cost is 810 to 820,000, either option.
That's an approximate, because I guess from the peer review perspective, we don't have that final amount, but yes.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And, sorry, there's a couple in the queue now. Deputy Mayor.
Tēnā koe, James. Thank you, Your Worship. Similarly, I wanted to ask a question about 2.6, where we've got, I understand peer reviewing is an important part of ensuring that there's a robust process. And is that normally done council to council? Like someone in Napier City Council might come down here and peer review this?
No, that will be done by an external consultant. So So there's two parts to that peer review. It's of the business case itself and then of the modelling we do behind that. That modelling is quite specialised and not something that we would have internal, but it's, a requirement of NZTA to peer review business cases, and it's always external.
And so that external can't be from another council?
No.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, on 2.7, when we talk about the amounts do not allow for any contingency, my understanding is that best practice would be we should have 10 to 15% contingency attached to that. So are we going to have more? Are we going to be required to pay more than what is suggested here? Why don't we have a contingency?
Do you mind?
I can jump in there if you like. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, we have a contract with GHD to deliver the business case for the price. Our expectation, clear expectation, is that is what will happen. I think it's a low risk for this type of operational. So we're not dealing with a capital project here. We're dealing with an operational project, which is largely a bunch of experts. I think it's low risk that we're likely to see the costs exceed the contract.
Thank you, David, and thank you, James. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Johnson?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, James. So this extra budget is operational expenditure, but it hasn't been rated for. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So where is it coming from?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as it currently stands, this would be unbudgeted increase to the budget to enable this work, and effectively, depending on how the financial picture for the year ends, any deficit would be funded from additional borrowing if that's necessary, if we haven't raised the revenue for it.
Okay, so is it proposed to look for operational savings elsewhere to be able to fund this?
We will always do that. As I said, to answer to one of the earlier questions, you know, the professional services budget across the organisation is under pressure. I know particularly within strategic planning where these budgets sit, but you know, we will continue to look for projects as best we can to either, you know, slow or delay without reducing levels of service or commitments that we've made to the council or the community to deliver. But at this stage, I think it's unlikely that we'll be able to find savings within the professional services line to fund this piece of work on the accelerated timeframe.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to bring this in, but obviously I'm aware of the following item, which has also got a large unbudgeted operational expenditure line. So, you know, together they would equal, you know, more than $500,000. How would we be proposing to pay for these if not by going into deficit at the end of the year and having to borrow?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's probably not much further I can add to what Cam, our CFO, said in terms of how this would be funded. I think both of these projects, this paper and the paper that follows, highlight that the city is experiencing growth, and the cost of planning and providing for that growth is significant. So I think it was a key issue through the LTP. I think it will likely be a key issue in the next LTP as to how we continue to plan and provide for the growth of the city. I think both items relate also to funding decisions of the government around what they've prioritised through the NLTP. So remembering the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road business case was not co-funded. We're funding this 100% out of council budget, and the same applies to the paper that follows. We sought co-funding for the Akotiri business case. It wasn't approved. However, I don't want to get to that paper, but 1,000 sections rely on a business case and intersection upgrades.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harper.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just one question for me, probably for the Chief Executive. Councillor Hancock brought up about it being genuine consultation. Is all our consultation genuine?
Through the chair, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues, we have the recommendations in front of us. Thank you, James. That's done the questions. Appreciate your report. We have three there around council approving 189,000 budgeted operational expenditure around professional services in the 25-26 financial year to complete the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road business case by 1 October 26, based on the updated timeline included as attachment 1. 2, the council increased the cap on the professional services budget in 25-26 financial year by 189,000. 3, that council note the 26-27 budget for the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road will be adjusted as part of the 2026-27 annual budget process. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look, colleagues, we either do this or we don't. This is probably one of the most significant projects that the city is undertaking, like our waters and our wastewater plant, but this is at the other end of the scale around growth. It's a multi-stakeholder project of which has been in LTPs, and ever since even before I've been in this chamber. We're a key enabler and partner of that as well, and it is a multi-billion-dollar project over the lifetime and the different partners. So it makes good business sense and decision-making sense to try and influence the influencers, and we give our best shot of trying to get this in front of, on parts of it, in front of decision makers before the central government election. Now, in past elections, for some political parties, this has been a project. Unfortunately, we missed out in the last round of asks, and we know that already this, with some early numbers, that this ring road has better stats than other RONs that are being built at the moment around the country, down south, up north, and to the east of us. So we know we're on a good trajectory here. So we must do it to maximise our success. I can sense there is some nervousness about increasing the budgets, etc. I just looked at their annual report, which we just signed off, and that had and I know it doesn't operate like this all the time, but we had a $6 million operating surplus in the past 12 months. Ever since I've been around this table, we have been well managed on that side. So I'm confident that 189,000 can be found within the organisation. So I hope you can approve it. If we don't, then I think we should probably give it all up, because we won't be able to influence the influencers, and it's pretty critical. And I can see a few laughs around the table, but I'm absolutely serious. I chair this group, and you will not be influencing influencers if you don't make some sensible decisions around trying to maximise the business case for this ring road. So I do ask for your support. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My understanding of this paper is not to be reconsidering the merits of the business of the ring road, the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road. It's merely deciding whether we approve of the current timeline or a different timeline that actually speeds it up by only 2 months. So the whole, I feel it's being a bit dramatic to say we do this or we don't, and if we don't do this, we may as well give up, because all we're talking about is 2 months. And the question that we need to ask ourselves, is 2 months going to make a meaningful difference to the parties that we engage with prior to election? This, as we can see, the timeline would have the business case completed by the 1st of October. No, we all know that the policies and the priorities of each party will be determined well in advance of that date. And so, whilst I appreciate the officers have brought this report to us, I'm a little bit surprised at the recommendations they've come forward with, particularly around the risks that have been identified in 3.3. If we accelerated it any further, then there would be a concern around the authentic community engagement, or not allowing time for the NZTA review and assurance processes. My view is this is important work and we need to do it properly in a time frame that is appropriate and has been determined. I also believe that we need to exercise some discipline to operate within our set budgets. If this was so important that it was worth investing the additional money to speed things up by just 2 months, then my view would be that we should reprioritise something else and push that out to next year, but live within our agreed budget. So yes, I think this work is important. No, I don't think 2 months is going to make one iota, one little bit of difference in the overall scheme of things. The information we have now available to us should be sufficient to advocate to political parties to make it a priority.
Councillor Harper.
I totally disagree with what Councillor Nail is saying. I do think this is what we need to go out and do, and yes, it's also about a consultation process, and I think it is about Bunnythorpe and other areas that we need to go and consult with and get out there. And they talked about it being November and December this year, so we need to get out and talk to our communities about what is going to go on in this area. We've had emails from, well, all had emails from them to say what is going on and can you come and talk to us about it. So it is about doing genuine consultation, which we know we all do, genuine consultation, because all our consultation is genuine. So at the end of the day, let's go on and do this. I agree that's with all 3 recommendations, and I think we should all support them. So thanks, everybody.
Councillor Hancock.
Timing is everything, Mr Mayor, in terms of being able to respond to other comments. But look, I am actually going to support this, and thank you, David and James, for your responses just around my concerns around the timeline. When you actually have a truncated timeline like this, there is a risk that there is an allegation that our consultation has not been genuine, and that was merely the question I was asking. So my concerns about this is that I understand we have to try and actually get in front of government or or politicians prior to the election in October or thereabouts next year. That's really, really important. But I guess my cautionary notes are really around, you know, we've just signed off and the ink is not yet dry in terms of the Greater Bunnythorpe Community Plan. And there's been a lot of work that's actually gone into that to make sure that the Bunnythorpe community actually feel seen and valued as far as the Palmerston City Council is concerned. We've also made some decisions and made some statements and some promises through the FDS to make sure that Bunnythorpe is not cut in half by any proposed ring road going forward. So my cautionary notes here are that, yes, this is fine, it's really important. We need to actually get in front of central government to try and actually make sure that we get some money for it. But at the same time, we've got to align the Greater Bunnythorpe Community Plan, we've got to align the FDS. We've got to understand that there are some complexities about how we're actually going to achieve this, and there needs to be meaningful consultation with those that will be affected by the ultimate ring road. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm also supportive of the recommendations and the fact of just 2 months bringing it forward. I actually think the strategic timeline around the central government elections gives us a focal point for us to line ourselves with. And we know that this is one of our economic strengths around distribution, logistics. We know that the central distribution hub is an important strategy or a project within that, and that the central government are essential for us to execute this. I see this as no new money, it's just moving it forward. If we were to have wider conversations around this, I think this is with our neighbour across the way to contribute to the type of this, because I feel it has some advantages for them too. So I'm taking this as a regional leadership decision. And then recently, as you go up to Waikato and see all the outer express ring roads and all the amount of activity that's happening around that Golden Triangle, and we're meant to be the Central Cross or whatever.
Platinum Triangle.
Platinum Triangle, is that our name? We've got to take a lead on this. It's a catalyst for so much investment and activity. And so for me, this is a very clear yes. I think this is, if we're narrowing down what are the most important things for our region and for our future, this would be one of them. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Yes, I also support the titanium triangle. Now look, councillors, I agree with Councillor Naylor. I would not pay $189,000 of additional money to bring something for 2 months. The reason that I will support this is because we're not paying an additional $189,000. The total price of either of these options, as I confirmed in questions to officers, is $820,000. So, no, quite rightly, I don't think 2 months would be worth a huge amount of money to bring it forward. But this is about the timing of the budgets, not about the quantum of the budgets. And in that line, I've got no problem doing this. But what I would point, although I agree 2 months does seem rather underwhelming, when you look at the actual phases and what they're talking about in there, I'll draw you to page 247, the second 2 bits of phase 4, whereby August we'll have a ministerial briefing prepared, but by July we will have finished the first option and have it out for peer review. So I'm quite sure in July we'd be able to start having those conversations of, look, this is the rough cost, the rough idea, it's out for peer review at the moment, there may be some minor changes, but that's what we're looking like. If we didn't move that forward, that would mean it would be October, before we would have that final version ready and going out for peer review. So pulling it back into July to have that first version ready, aside from that final sign-off, I think does give us a little bit more flexibility. And look, I would say now to the officers, there's no punishment for doing it quicker. I would much rather we had it ready, the full report ready in July or September rather than October, so that we could make that pitch better to parties. But I do think this will give us enough information by the time that we're pitching to parties to be in a good position. And I do highlight again, it is not an additional total cost, and therefore the Mayor is right in saying if you're not going to, the only reason you wouldn't vote for this is if you didn't want to spend the money next year. But I think we're all pretty much in agreement that we should spend the money next year, so therefore it doesn't change anything to bring it forward a little bit. So I'll support it.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Wood and I are in agreement about quite a lot of this, about the phasing. When you said if we don't do this, we're not doing it at all, and I did laugh, because there is zero chance we are not doing this. I think we've all agreed this is a strategically important project, so we're committed to doing it. I want to give it its best chance of success, and as Councillor Wood said, the phasing is what's important here. It might be 2 months at the end, but some of those chunky pieces of work in the middle gain us 4 or 5 months, and that's an important 4 or 5 months for getting us in front of decision makers with good quality information, and so I'm happy to support it.
Thanks, colleagues. I'm reading the room. So just very quickly, the timeline is critical. That's my main message. And politics is politics, councillors. You've got to be in front of the influencers. So we've got an influence, and to do that, you've got to have some numbers rather than, hey, this is a good idea, which we've always been advocating for. Oh, but we don't quite know what the business case looks like. We've got to get in front of that. So please support this. To me, it's a no-brainer. Vote, please. And it's passed 15 votes for and 1 against. All right. Thank you. We will now break for lunch, and we'll see you back in the chamber at 1:45. Oh, okay. I've just been told we're going to move into part 2. So, I'm going to do this properly. All right. We'll look to move into part 2 when we come back at 1:45 for reasons around negotiation, confidentiality, employee performance, and negotiations. I'm happy to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll ask you to vote, please. and that is passed 16 votes for and none against. Thank you. We'll see you back here at 1:45.